My name is George Washington Hall. I was born and raised here. I'm the oldest of 6 kids, and I went to the public schools here. I left after graduation and went to Detroit to find employment. I stayed there for a couple of years and I got drafted into the United States Army. Took basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia. Took AIT, Advanced Individual Training, at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Then I shipped off to Vietnam. Well, my dad and my mother acquired about 52 acres of land, so they did farming. They raised cotton and grew vegetables. I ended up loving the farm, got attached to it. So after I came back from Vietnam, I came back and took over the farm, and we tried to advance it from where it was to where it is now. Well, in 1966, when I graduated from high school, there wasn't any employment as far as industrial employment. Most people worked in the field. I thought it might have been a better situation if I went north. I had relatives in Detroit, so I did. I left and went to Detroit, and I started working at Uniroyal Tire Company. I made approximately $4 an hour, which is more than you make here all day during that time. When I came back from active duty, I took over my mother's property and farm, and I started farming. And then I acquired 100 acres of property, and that was a challenge within itself. You had all whites in the Farm Service Agency making decisions for blacks. So it was kind of like, we don't want you to have this property, so we're going to make it difficult for you to acquire it. So what I did, I asked for the money to borrow to acquire the property, as well as money to buy livestock to go on the property. And they told me that I couldn't do that. So I had to go through Tuskegee to acquire grants funds through Hereford Project International out Little Rock, Arkansas. So they helped me get some cows and get started into the cattle operation. The programs that was available to all farmers was determined whether you get them by an all-white committee. So after years of doing the crops, we had a disaster one year, and I was raising sweet potatoes. And I go in the office and apply for disaster benefits, and they tell me how much I'm going to receive. But when I get the check, it's cut in half as to what I'm supposed to be getting. So I went back to the office and questioned the procedures of practice. And the administrator told me, said, well, if I did not agree with it, I could come before the committee and make a complaint. So that's what I did. I made a complaint through the committee, and then I also complained to USDA in Washington, D.C. that I was being discriminated against. So it took approximately a year and a half or 2 years for them to review my case. But when they did research it, and they came to a conclusion that they did discriminate against me. So then they asked me what would it take to resolve the issue or solve my problem. So I told them I thought those people that were serving on that committee did not need to serve any further in the community because they was all white and they being biased towards blacks. So they came off the committee, and from that point, things went crazy for me, as they say. They blackballed me, and so I had to struggle with that. Eventually, there was other guys that was being treated the same way in different states. So we received a call from Earl Hilliard's office out of Birmingham. He was the person representing this area at that time in Washington. So he asked us, did we want to join a lawsuit for discrimination against black farmers? So I agreed to do that. I became one of the lead plaintiffs in that case. It was called Tim Pigford versus United States Department of Agriculture. After we alleged the complaint and filed the lawsuit, we tried to get blacks to participate, and most blacks was reluctant to do it because a lot of them still lived and communicated with a lot of white people, and they didn't want to go against, some of the the whites that they thought were being fair or were being unfair. So when we tried to get blacks to join it, they took a negative attitude toward the black farmer lawsuit. But as soon as we got a chance to make it roll, then they all wanted to join into the lawsuit, and they pretended that they wasn't aware of it. But it was announced in all media that there was a black farmer lawsuit going against the United States Department of Agriculture. I kind of felt, I could understand that position that they was taking, if they were going to have to deal with a situation like that I was dealing with, being blackballed and not being able to get credit or be able to get what they need to farm. It is a problem. Yeah, it was a problem at that time. Well, most of them, they end up getting $50,000, and some of them got debt relief from the United States Department of Agriculture if they was, in debt to the United States Department of Agriculture. Yes. So it helped a lot of farmers. Well, it went, national, so other states received the same benefits that we received in Alabama. It was three guys that led the lawsuit: Tim Pickford out of Carolina, Lloyd Schaefer out of Mississippi, and myself from Alabama.
Did you end up getting a lot more kind of pushback as sheriffs as that case was going on around here?
Yeah, we did. We got pushed back. We had 3 or 4 churches burned in one night. All kinds of things was happening because of the situation with the black farmers lawsuit. I thought somebody had to step up and take the punch and do what needed to be done. And plus, I had been to the military, and I thought about it. It's kind of strange that you go off and fight for your country, and then you come back and you're being treated unfairly. That's not a good thing. But that's the way it was, and it may be still some of that prejudice going on, but it's not as bad as it used to be.
Did you think we'd make more progress by now?
Well, we have made great strides because, like I say, we end up with a black president, and that was never thought of probably back in the days when I was coming on as a kid. Even with a black sheriff, that was just kind of unheard of. But then as things continued to, I guess, be hard and hardship for blacks, they didn't really have much of a choice. They had to make a decision for survival. I always felt that it was worth it. I thought somebody needed to step up to the plate because there was a lot of injustice going with it. You got to try to advance the cause, and if you don't, you just stay stagnated in one place. But in order for people to progress, they got to do different things, try to advance themselves, and do good for the whole as a whole.
If you had one thing to say to the younger generation about pushing forward, especially the younger generation in the state, about continuing to make progress, what would you say?
Basically, they need to get an education. We need an education to be able to function in society. You just can't make it without an education. I don't think that you can. You might exist, but your life wouldn't be as well as it need to be.
What would you say, or what would you do? What's the best way to get, especially young black men, involved in farming again?
I really don't know. I think about the Federation of Southern Co-ops, where they did a lot to train minorities back early in the 50s, not in the 60s and 70s. And it survived, it still exists. But we have a problem trying to get young blacks to participate in farming operations. It's just a thing that they don't want to do. I guess because it has a slave mentality with it, So most people, they run from the farm. They don't want to do it. So I don't know how we encourage blacks to participate or to continue farming. But the majority of blacks, I think, the four-parents struggle to acquire the land. But most blacks, they leave and go to the city. They don't even take the value of the land in consideration anymore, I don't think. And that's a bad thing.